He stepped up on short notice. In MMA, that phrase carries respect. People think of moments like Michael Bisping answering the phone late and winning a title, fighters saving main events, cards staying alive, courage being rewarded. But short notice doesn't just change the odds. It changes what kind of fight this becomes. When preparation time disappears, the contest stops being only about skill. It becomes a test of which systems were already stable and which ones were never confirmed. Conditioning not pushed at fight pace, timing not tested under fatigue, weight not fully settled, recovery not stressed. To the audience, everything still looks normal. Two elite fighters, same cage, same rules. But the fight has already shifted. This isn't about heart or toughness. Those decide who says yes. They don't decide how the body behaves once pressure stacks. Time normally protects fighters by making responses predictable under stress. When that time is gone, mistakes don't arrive gradually. They arrive all at once. That's why some short-notice fights look heroic, and others unravel without warning. The fight didn't change suddenly. It started earlier than anyone realized. If you want calm explanations of MMA that focus on decisions and consequences under real pressure, subscribe to Cage Reality. Number 1, short notice feels invisible to fans because the most important parts of preparation are never seen. When a fight is announced late, viewers focus on what's visible: the opponent, the size difference, the skill matchup. They compare records and styles as if the fight exists only inside those frames. What they don't see is time. They don't see preparation timelines. They don't see whether conditioning is being confirmed or rushed. They don't see weight settling, recovery stabilizing, or timing being tested under fatigue. Short notice feels minor because the fighter still looks ready. They're in shape. They've been training. They still belong at that level. So the assumption feels reasonable. If they're already training, what difference do a few weeks make? The difference is that training isn't readiness. Training builds ability. Readiness removes uncertainty. A full camp doesn't add skill. It proves systems work. Conditioning is tested. Weight is settled. Timing is calibrated when tired. Short notice skips that proof. The fighter enters the cage assuming their body will hold up instead of knowing it will. Everything still looks normal. The walkout, the stare down, the first exchange. But the fight has already changed. What looks like a standard matchup is actually an experiment. And experiments under pressure rarely end cleanly. Number 2, time doesn't just prepare a fighter, it stabilizes them. Most people think preparation is routines. Road work, sparring, pad work, weight cuts. Those are visible and easy to film. But time's real value isn't what it adds, it's what it settles. Physically, time lets the body reach a baseline. Weight stabilizes, joints adapt. Conditioning is tested so fatigue doesn't surprise the fighter. Neurologically, time makes reactions reliable. Timing isn't about speed, it's about consistency under stress. The body responds the same way because it's been stressed repeatedly. Psychologically, time reduces uncertainty. Stress becomes familiar. Confidence comes from knowing how the body behaves when pressure builds. None of this shows up in highlights, none of it trends, but it decides what happens when something goes wrong. Time doesn't make fighters better in a dramatic way. It makes them predictable under stress. When time is removed, skill is still there, but reliability isn't. And once reliability disappears, every mistake costs more. Number 3, when preparation time is removed, skill is rarely the first thing to fail. What disappears first is certainty. Conditioning becomes uncertain. A fighter may feel fit, but they don't know how their gas tank holds up at fight pace. They haven't tested whether their output is sustainable or whether fatigue arrives earlier than expected. Without that confirmation, every exchange carries doubt. Weight becomes unstable. Making weight is only part of the process. Stabilizing after the cut is just as important. On short notice, the body hasn't had time to settle. Energy levels fluctuate. Strength comes and goes. Small inefficiencies appear where none existed before. Timing becomes untested. Movements that feel sharp in isolation haven't been stressed under fatigue or chaos. Reactions may still be fast, but reliability is unknown. The fighter doesn't know whether their timing holds when distance collapses or when exchanges get messy. Recovery capacity is the biggest unknown. How quickly the body resets after absorbing damage isn't something that can be guessed. It has to be experienced. Without full preparation, the fighter enters the cage without knowing how many mistakes they can absorb before everything slows down. This is why short-notice fights feel unstable. The fighter isn't fighting an opponent alone. They're also discovering their own limits in real time. Decisions are made without knowing how the body will respond 2 minutes later, or one hard exchange from now. This ties directly back to the concept of lost margin. Just like at heavyweight, when recovery disappears, mistakes stop being survivable. The difference is that on short notice, the fighter doesn't even know where that margin ends until it's already gone. That's why outcomes swing suddenly, and why real examples make sense once this layer is understood. Number 4, real examples show that saying yes doesn't just change outcomes, it changes cost. Michael Bisping is often cited as proof that short notice can work. He accepted a title fight with limited preparation and won. But time normally provides protection beyond the result. In his case, the victory didn't erase the cost of compressed preparation. Damage accumulated under unstable conditions, and the consequences arrived later, not on fight night. Kevin Holland shows a different trade-off. By repeatedly accepting short-notice fights, availability replaced preparation. The result wasn't lost skill, but volatility. Some performances looked sharp, others didn't. Time normally provides consistency under stress. Without it, reliability never has the chance to settle. Tony Ferguson's late-career short-notice fights reveal what happens when time disappears after tolerance is already compromised. Earlier, preparation gave his style room to absorb chaos. Later, short notice removed the last stabilization runway. Saying yes didn't show toughness. It exposed how little margin remained. Nate Diaz is often used as proof that toughness is enough. Short notice fits his identity, but toughness can mask readiness gaps. Time normally aligns endurance, timing, and recovery. Without it, durability substitutes for preparation, and the body absorbs costs that would otherwise be managed. In every case, the question isn't whether short notice worked. It's what time normally protected, and what happened once that protection was gone. Number 5, courage is real and it deserves respect. Accepting a fight on short notice takes confidence, belief, and a willingness to face risk without guarantees. Fighters who say yes aren't reckless. They understand the stakes and accept them publicly. The problem is how courage gets misapplied. Courage affects willingness. It doesn't affect system readiness. It doesn't restore recovery capacity. It doesn't test conditioning under stress. It doesn't calibrate timing when fatigue sets in. It doesn't stabilize the nervous system under pressure. Those things are built through time, not intent. When courage is mistaken for preparation, fighters enter unknown territory blind. They don't know how their body will behave once exchanges accumulate. They don't know how quickly they recover after absorbing damage. They don't know where their margin actually ends. This is why short-notice fights often look confusing. The fighter isn't failing due to lack of heart. They're discovering limits they never had the chance to measure. Courage opens the door. Preparation decides what happens once you walk through it. And when time is removed, courage doesn't reduce risk. It simply carries it forward into the fight unchanged. Number 6, this is why short-notice losses often confuse fans. When a fighter underperforms, the explanations come fast. He looked off. He wasn't himself. Just a bad night. Those statements are usually true. They're just incomplete. A fighter on short notice often is off. Not emotionally, but structurally. The systems that stabilize performance haven't been confirmed. Conditioning hasn't been stress tested. Timing hasn't been calibrated under fatigue. Recovery hasn't been measured once damage begins to stack. From the outside, it looks like a sudden drop in quality. Inside the fight, it feels like uncertainty compounding with every exchange. The loss doesn't come only from the opponent. It comes from missing preparation layers that normally absorb early mistakes. Without them, small problems escalate quickly. A manageable round becomes draining. A resettable exchange becomes decisive. Fatigue that would have passed becomes permanent. That's why short-notice fights often unravel without warning. The fighter isn't discovering the opponent. They're discovering their own limits in real time. Under pressure, The performance didn't collapse randomly, it ran out of protection. Number 7. Short notice fights are built on a clear trade-off. They offer visibility. They offer money. No, they offer status. The reputation of someone willing to step up. Those benefits are real. What short notice takes in return is less obvious. It takes reliability. It takes margin. It takes forgiveness. Time normally allows mistakes to be absorbed and corrected. It gives fighters room to adjust under pressure without paying the full cost immediately. When time is removed, every adjustment becomes expensive. This isn't about right or wrong decisions. It's about understanding the cost. Some fighters accept the trade-off willingly. Others feel pushed into it by timing or circumstance. In both cases, the price often appears later, after the moment has passed and the decision can't be undone. That's the lens Cage Reality is built on. Decisions made under pressure don't always fail right away. They succeed first and charge you later. Time doesn't guarantee success, but it protects fighters from catastrophic failure. When time disappears, the fight doesn't become unfair. It becomes unforgiving. Short notice fights don't remove skill. They remove protection, the systems that absorb mistakes, the margin that keeps small problems from becoming endings. Cage Reality exists to slow those moments down and explain the real cost behind decisions made in public under stress. If that kind of clarity matters to you, subscribe.